So at the request of one of my new subscribers, we're going to do something a little different today. Today, I'm just going to talk about myself and tell you a little bit about me and my background. So let's talk about that in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video, subscribe to this channel, maybe even click that little bell that will notify you when I post something new. So Wayne from Texas left a comment suggesting that I should do a video about my background and my life and my experience, and so here it is. Wayne apparently is one of my new subscribers who came here by virtue of the fact that he was first introduced to me in my commentary through Jesse Dollemore. Jesse, who I think the world of, and who I've always been a huge fan of, and whose channel I'll link to down below, of course, was kind enough to have me sit in for him for a couple weeks while he was moving from California to DC, so he can better cover the Washington political scene. My expectation is we're going to see a lot more good stuff coming out of Jesse in the next few months and years, as he's so well positioned to be able to tell us exactly what's going on there. But I'm especially grateful for some of Jesse's subscribers who decided that after seeing me on his channel, they'd come over and check out the Democratic Activist channel here. And so I welcome you all and thank you all, and I'm glad to have you here. And I hope that you're enjoying things. And please, as Wayne did, he left a comment suggesting a video. If you have any ideas for a video, just let me know, and I'll do my best to try to come up with something for you. So my background is, well, I kind of grew up all over the place. Moved around a lot. My dad was a college professor, not something you'd expect typically to result in someone moving around a lot, but it's just kind of the way things worked out. My folks got divorced when I was about, I'd say 13 years old, and I moved down from Canada, where we'd been living at the time, to Massachusetts, where I lived with my grandparents and went to high school and college and pretty much started my political career. I'd always been interested in politics. I talked with my dad about it from the time I was young, and I always considered myself someone who was an advocate of progress, an advocate of government interventions, and an advocate of government focused on people's needs. But I'll be frank with you, I didn't know a whole lot about things. So I had a lot to learn. And the place I really started to be opened up politically was in college. I went to the University of Massachusetts at Amherst, where I started out as a political science major, but decided that really there's no science to politics, so maybe I'll go and be a history major, which I loved. It was a great experience there, and that's really where I had my political opening up. I got involved in the college Democrats there and in student government and met some very well-educated, very thoughtful, very insightful individuals who were able to kind of educate me as to the way things work, both in government and politics, and really how society works and how it's been set up in a way that has led to frankly, the oppression of certain groups. After college, I decided I wanted to work in politics to try to make a difference. I went to work for my local state senator before leaving that and going to work for the gubernatorial campaign of Evelyn Murphy. Here's a picture of me back then. I was probably all of about, 21 years old at the time. It's a long time ago, 1990. I'm showing my age now. But I believed in her candidacy. I thought that it would be something great for the state of Massachusetts. But it was a very frustrating experience because literally we spent a year losing that campaign. As a woman, she was out-fundraised and outclassed by her opposition in terms of their insider connections. And so much as we tried to organize people around the issues that she stood for, most notably her strong stand in favor of choice, she ended up withdrawing from the primary a week before the election, which was crushing. At any rate, I was pretty frustrated with Massachusetts politics at that point, so at the suggestion of our campaign manager, who had worked for a presidential campaign in New Hampshire, he suggested that I should go and work on a campaign for Congress in New Hampshire for a young upstart called Dick Sweat. The campaign manager didn't seem to think that we had much of a chance, but hey, I figured I'd go up there, work in New Hampshire, and get some experience there, and that would make me an attractive potential staffer to future presidential campaigns. Because, of course, we had a presidential election coming up in '92. And I was passionate about my desire to see George H.W. Bush at the time defeated. Unbelievably, in retrospect, I thought that he was the kind of Republican we needed to get rid of. Boy, I wish we had more Republicans like him now. At any rate, I went to New Hampshire and worked for Dick's campaign, and unbelievably, we ended up winning. Here's a picture of me standing with him in his office on Capitol Hill. I spent about a year working there before I decided I need to pick up roots and go and work on the presidential campaign of Senator Bob Kerrey, who who I thought had a great chance and would be a great progressive voice as president. We ran an aggressive campaign in New Hampshire, came in third, right behind Paul Tsongas, and won Bill Clinton, who you might have heard of. Bill Clinton, of course, went on to win the nomination and the presidency and served 2 terms. During that time, I went and managed a campaign in Colorado for Congress, and then ultimately ended up in Michigan to work for Congressman Levin here, and ultimately leaving that job to go to work for the state capitol for a while, for the Democratic caucus. More importantly, though, during that period, I met the woman who would become my wife. Yes, that's right, I'm not a native Michiganian, although the truth of the matter is I've now lived in Michigan longer than anywhere else in my life. We've now been together 28 years, and although it hasn't always been easy, she is truly the love of my life, and I'm so grateful to have her in my life. At any rate, she had a 2-year-old daughter who I adopted, and together we had a son, both of whom are grown now. And my daughter had a son who's our grandson, who we love so dearly. In the meantime, though, I ended up going to work for a candidate for mayor of Michigan's 3rd largest city, a guy called Mark Steenberg, who was running at the time against the Senate minority leader. Most of the handicapping was giving the nod to our opponent, but after an aggressive campaign that was really about as close to a scorched earth campaign as I've ever been involved, Mark ended up winning, and he asked me to come and work with him in his administration. Ultimately, I worked for him for 10 years, 8 of them as deputy mayor for Michigan's 3rd largest city. And I'm very proud of some of our accomplishments where we really tried to move the city forward and try to behave in a progressive fashion that helps the residents. It was a great experience. During that time, I also engaged in political consulting with various campaigns, so the point being I've been involved in probably hundreds of political campaigns at this point. While I was working, though, for the mayor, a measure passed that put in place term limits. And realizing that at some point here, my time working with Mark would come to an end, I decided it was time to do something else. Unfortunately, my history major from college was not going to be that helpful on the job market. So I decided it was time to go back to school, and so I went back to law school. Finished law school going part-time in 2.5 years, which was really a challenge, I must say. My attitude was I wanted to go as quickly as possible to get done, because at a certain point, I would get sick of it and say, why am I doing this? This sucks. But by then, my goal was that I'd be far enough along that I'd say, well, I only have a little bit more to go. I may as well finish it. And ironically, that's about exactly how things happened. So I finished law school, decided I was going to start my own law practice, and I focused on bankruptcy law, which actually had been an interest of mine for years. As it turned out, I was really at the place to be because I ended up being there practicing bankruptcy law just as the bankruptcy laws changed. And so I was involved in early efforts to kind of define the parameters of those laws. And I was working there really as we went through the Great Recession of 2008 and 2009. I had a busy practice, a successful practice, but ultimately I decided what I really wanted to do was teach. I used to say to my clients who I'd describe how the different laws worked that I was a frustrated teacher. And one day I decided, you know what? Maybe I should just become a teacher. So once again, I went back to graduate school. I earned my PhD in management strategy. And since then, I've been working as a professor of strategy, law, and ethics at Oakland University, which is a pretty good size research university located here in Michigan. This stage of my political activism really started a few years ago when I was so outraged over what I was seeing in the Trump administration. I felt I needed to, as I said to my wife, vent my spleen. So what I ended up doing is started writing articles for Medium. Well, Medium was frustrating in that sometimes it seemed like I'd get a lot of attention for my articles. Sometimes I wouldn't get any attention for my articles. So after some prompting by my wife, and it's worth noting, I always do what she suggests that I do, I ultimately decided to start this channel. It's been a great experience, and I love having this community with all of you. Hopefully I can give you some ammo as you're out there fighting the MAGA crowd. I know especially down in Texas, Wayne probably has some interesting characters he needs to deal with. Well, you should know that the county I live in here in Michigan is Macomb County, made famous during the Clinton campaign, actually, as the key swing county. It's part of the reason that I was attracted to come here in the first place. As of right now, it is a county that tends to lean Republican. It voted, I believe, 53% for Trump in the last election. And in the 2016 election, unbelievably, this was one of the 3 counties in the country that if its vote were different, the election would have been different. Because this was the county that put Michigan over the top for Trump, I'm sad to say. So anyone who says that I'm living in some liberal enclave, ignorant of what is actually going on with the real people out there, well, you should give that a second thought. Well, I hope you found this little discussion about myself interesting. I'd love to hear about you in the comments down below. And over here, I'll post a link to the playlist of some of the videos I did when I was sitting in for Jesse Dollemore. It was a great experience. I loved it. And I'm so appreciative of all of you. So if you've missed some of these videos, please check them out. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, let's hope for continued progress. Thank you.